instructions on with regards to the EDCA. So we have discussed during our meeting just this morning ways forward on how to address those gaps that we have encountered. Of course, because of some problems that on challenges along the way, that includes the pandemic that we have right now. And we now look at a very good opportunity now that we have a go signal to push forward with the VFA. And pretty much for the next coming year, we will intensify our activities, particularly relating to the EDCA.
And from my perspective, first, let me say thanks to General Faustino's leadership. Although I'll start and go the other way on the EDCA sites. It's important to note that those were formally approved through both governments previously. And at this point, we are just executing the tasking from both of our governments. I've released $12.5 million to meet the responsibilities that were outlined in the previous EDCA agreement. And those fundings are being distributed in alignment with the prioritized order of capabilities that have been agreed to by General Faustino and me. So this is what right looks like through the lens of cooperation and in complete agreement by the two of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much, Drio, for your question. From Rappler, Mr. Jairo Boledo. Jairo, go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, General Faustino, and good afternoon, Admiral Aquilino. My question would be, recently we had the AUKUS agreement, the Australia, UK, and the US agreement. For the both of you, anyone can answer. How would the agreement would specifically benefit the country or the Philippines amid the threats of China?
So I'll start with that one. The AUKUS agreement, I would articulate as really an expansion and an agreement amongst allies to further increase the capability of the undersea environment to maintain the peace, stability, and security in the region that exists. It is not separate, it is additive. There are all nations, I believe, understand the importance of this region to the global economy, the transport of goods and services to all nations, including the EU and the UK. This region is extremely important. We just have seen multiple EU nations deployed to the region, and the AUKUS agreement will ensure that security is maintained throughout the region. We'd like all nations are welcome to operate in the international or in the global domains that are rights of all through the rules-based international order that exists. So AUKUS is another opportunity to ensure we can maintain the peace, stability, and security of the region. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. For our side, we acknowledge the right of those countries, for example, Australia, in developing their defense capabilities. We acknowledge those rights, just as they acknowledge ours. And the keyword here is rules-based international order. So we will benefit from that, particularly those regions those areas that are being considered are the areas where there is a very heavy economic traffic and economic activity. And for sure, our country will benefit from that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, just a follow-up question. Just a question from me, sir. Sir, in September, Defense Secretary Lorenzana mentioned that he revived his call to review the mutual defense treaty, and he gave at least three what do we call this? Three themes to that can be considered for review. For example, the review on the 2016 Hague ruling, as well as the other relevant defense agreements. And for the past week, sir, we have seen additional donations from the United States, additional weapon donations. Sir, would we see changes po ba in defense agreements, or would we see review po ba in mutual defense treaties or in our other agreements?
Yeah, I think taking the lead from the Secretary of National Defense. When he discussed that to us, it is more of looking at the MDT on the current needs of the times. Remember that the MDT was signed in 1951, and this is part of the changes that we're doing right now, based on the agreements that we have with the MDT SEB. I'm sorry, MDB SEB, and particularly on domains that we discussed about information sharing, about HADR, about cybersecurity, and capability development and exchanges and training. So it's a continuous process because of the MDB and the SEB, using that as a platform.
Thank you very much, sirs. We're now down to our last two questions. The second to the last will be coming from Nikkei. From Cliff Vrenson of Nikkei. Cliff?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon to our speakers. Related to the AUKUS, just want to ask, will UK participate in the Balikatan next year as an observer, or are there ongoing talks for their participation?
Yes, I think there is ongoing talks of UK participating as an observer for the Balikatan 2022. That would be next year.
Yeah, and as we get requests, again, I will take General Faustino's lead, as this is his exercise to determine the nations that he would like to participate, and I will be supportive of his decisions.
And may I ask a follow-up? Just to be sure, did they request to participate, or did we invite them? And another, just to be sure, what exactly is the extent of the participation if you are an observer? Are they sending troops, and how many troops usually do they send?
Well, usually having the observer status, for example, in previous Balikatan exercises that we had, we have, for example, Japan and Australia sending just a small contingent to observe, and because we don't have, when we say observer status, we don't have if we compare it with the US, that we have a treaty, and they can participate in exercises, which is not allowed if we do not have an existing treaty with these countries. So they're just here to observe, and they cannot participate in the exercises.
And the United States, similar for large exercises, we also utilize the observer status. It helps the nations who have not participated in this larger complex event to understand the intricacies, the commitments, the preparation. So the term observer status is not anything specifically or special to Balikatan. It's a way to safely integrate new countries into our events, and many nations execute the same construct.
Thank you very much, sir. Sirs, and thank you, Cliff, for your question. Sir, before I call on Mr. David Santos from CNN, there's this phone in the question from GMA7 from Mr. Chino Gaston. Sir, good afternoon. Did EDCA discussions touch on Oyster Bay Naval Base and other temporary U.S. installations within the Philippines? The question came from Mr. Chino Gaston of GMA7, sir.
I think we're looking at was that Oyster Bay?
Oyster Bay, sir.
Okay. We're looking at other areas. The priorities right now is the one in Fort Magsaysay, the one in Basa Air Base, and the other one is in Lumbia Airport in Cagayan de Oro City. If ever Oyster Bay was discussed, it was just a possible site, but as of now, there is no final list of what the probable sites will be. But we are looking at different areas, and we are considering, of course, how it will be beneficial to our armed forces and to the United States Armed Forces also. As I said, there is still no final list regarding our future EDCA projects.
Yeah, and I would say your categorization of a temporary U.S. facility is not accurate. The EDCA sites are specifically designed to enhance the capabilities of the Philippines while contributing to our alliance and allowing us to build interoperability. But the United States comes to those facilities at the invitation of General Faustino and your government. So I just want to be very clear. The capabilities that we end up delivering remain in place and enhance the cooperation and the capability of the Philippines Armed Forces and the United States.
Thank you very much, sirs. And now we're down to the last question, coming from Mr. David Santos of CNN Philippines. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, sirs. Good afternoon. The region is closely monitoring the situation now in both in Taiwan as well as in North Korea, and how we're like many Filipinos, we are also closely monitoring how our ally, the U.S. government, would respond to the tensions brought about by the situations there. And of course, whatever happens there in these two areas, areas of security concerns in the coming days, the coming months, would have a direct impact on the situation in the region. To Admiral Aquilino, may I ask if has the U.S. Asked the Philippines help in any way, just in case you will have to carry out certain missions in response to the tensions in these two areas? And was this discussed in the meetings?
Thank you. So what you highlight is the numerous amount of security challenges in this region. My travel here was focused on those things that the Philippine-U.S. alliance that we would do to strengthen the U.S. and Philippine alliance. Those security challenges that you identified are best met by a series and teaming of many nations aligned to support the values that we believe in: freedom for all, equal voice in disputes amongst all nations, large and small, human rights, freedom of navigation, and the adherence to the rules-based international order. So all of the things General Faustino and I talked about today were focused on the 70-year alliance that the people of the Philippines and the people of the United States enjoy, all towards the common goal of maintaining the peace, stability, and security of the region, as well as the prosperity for all of our people.
With that said, sir, thank you very much. That concludes our press briefing for the MDB SEB. We would like to thank the two co-chairs who were gracious enough to answer questions coming from the media, both locally and from those Foreign Correspondent Association of the Philippines. So that concludes our press briefing. Maraming salamat po at mag-ingat po tayong lahat. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.